Dan, have you handed out the password yet for the meeting?
I have not.
Okay.
I have not. All right, but it is live now on YouTube. I will post it, and let me close this. Too much noise. Looks like a full house. I showed 27, which with LNC alternates, COC. Let me take my shoes off. Yes, that seems right. So to that end, I think we can give out the, for those of you who are watching the YouTube channel, people who want to get in, the password is the moon, capital T, capital M, all one 7-letter phrase, capital THEMOON. And people who want to can share that with people who want to get into the room.
Right. It's 9:01. This meeting of the Libertarian National Committee will come to order. Ms. Harlos, if you could take the roll.
Okay, one moment, please. I was trying to help the other resident of the house come in. Just give me, if you could give me 1 second, Mr. Chair. I need to pull up my roster.
Sure.
One sec, because of course my computer wants to freeze when I need it to do something quickly. All righty. It's in a little bit of a different order than normal, but the chair is here, obviously. So Mr. Sarwark, Mr. Merced.
I'm here.
Mr. Hagan.
Here.
And I am here. Mr. Bishop Henchman.
Here.
Mr. Goldstein.
Yeah. Hang on, I had to figure out how to unmute.
Oh my
I'm here.
God. Will you spray me?
Ms. Mattson.
Hear me?
Biden or Trump? I mean, God.
So,
I'm going to mute everybody.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Harlos. Continue.
Ms. Mattson. I see her. Mr. Redpath.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Present.
Mr. Longstreth.
Here.
Mr. Wen.
Here.
Mr. Nikela.
Present.
Mr. Nikela.
Present. Can you hear me?
Oh, now I can. Thank you. Ms. Sexton.
Here.
Mr. Nana.
Here. Present. Here.
Mr. Fiera.
Present.
Ms. Hogarth.
Here.
Mr. Valenti.
Present.
Mr. Phillips.
Here.
I might get this last name wrong. It'd be your new alternate, Mr. Bugman.
Buffman.
Buffman.
Buffman. I'm here.
Thank you. It'll take a while for me to get that. I'm sorry, I'm really bad. Ms. Bilyeu.
Here.
Mr. Adams. Ms. Adams, excuse me.
I'm here.
Mr. Coburn.
Here.
Mr. Bowen.
Present.
The gang's all here, Mr. Chair.
Excuse me, you didn't ask whether I'm here, and I'm actually the region.
I'm sorry, who did I miss?
Jeff Hewitt.
I did, Mr. Hewitt.
No, you didn't call me. You called Mr. Ferrera.
Oh, sorry. Now the gang's all here. We cannot do anything without you, Mr.
Right.
Hewitt.
That's okay.
Okay. We will start with public comment for about 10 minutes, and then we'll proceed to the meeting. Anyone would like to engage in public comment, please raise your hand. not seeing anyone raising their hand yet. So we can dispense with public comment, I suppose, and just go straight into the meeting. Would anyone like to be recognized? Ms. Matson, and then Mr. Valente. Ms. Matson?
Thank you. I would like to move to change the location of the 2020 Libertarian National Convention to be the Rosen Centre Hotel and the Orange County Convention Center in Orlando, Florida.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded. Go ahead, Ms. Matson, you can speak to your motion.
Okay, so delegates expressly gave the LNC the power to change the location as part of the adjournment motion from the first sitting. So I think that's all that we need to change. This would still leave in place the date of July 9th and the call to order time of 9 a.m. Eastern. And then, just leave the rest of the motion remaining. We do have contract updates. I'm going to give you some highlights, but I'll leave it to Aaron Adams and Betty Rose Ryan to speak in more detail. But I think the highlights are the big problem we were facing about the catering vendor at the convention center. That's been hurdled. That hurdle has been crossed. We're not using that catering vendor for the gala. We've worked out to do it in the smaller ballroom that is in the Rosen Centre. So we don't have to have the cash in advance. We don't have that problem. It's also not a long walk to the convention center's ballroom. It'll be in our hotel space. And our other meeting space in the convention center for our general session is on the close side of the convention center, close to the hotel. Our delegate guest room rate has been reduced to $89. We have the same block size, but the attrition has been lowered to 30%. We only need 611 room nights to hit that. And we currently have 1,700 room nights at Shingle Creek for them to transfer over. So we could, even if there were cancellations, we only have to retain 611 room nights. The food and beverage minimum has been reduced to 15,000. So these are all pretty huge moves. And, I've previously expressed concern about financial impact of canceling the convention. Could end up in litigation that drags out for a while. And we're in a position now where we had to play a little bit hard, but the hotel has given us a path forward and lots of new concessions. As upset as we might be about how we got to this point, I think we need to accept this deal. We have an AV vendor and delegates who are already en route, and some delegates have already arrived in Orlando. So I think we should accept the deal on the table. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Valente.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to rise against this. The principal objection that I have to this motion is that the first contract that we were offered from the Rosen Group was negotiated, in my opinion, in bad faith. They reneged on a lot of the things that they were going to deliver. I do not trust the contract that has been laid before us. I don't trust what they're trying to give us right now, and what happens if we get to Tuesday or Wednesday and they renege on some of the things that they've offered us in this contract? And we've, instead of a handful of people that are on their way to Orlando, we've got several hundred people on their way to Orlando. So I think at this point we should not renew or not move the contracted facility to the Orlando Convention Center. We should move this to an online convention, and we should let some semblance, let people have some level of certainty going forward. We do not have that if we go with this contract.
Mr. Nana?
Yeah, I guess this is a point of inquiry for somebody who knows. So say I booked a hotel previously for a different rate. How does that translate over now that there's a new room rate? I mean, is the hotel going to get this money back? How does that work?
You should get a credit from the hotel.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Harlows?
Thank you. I'm going to have some words to say, and then I'm going to offer an amendment. I do not believe we have a choice at this point, and that is because we have been given marching orders by the delegates. The delegates are the ultimate boss of this party. This body does not have the right to override the delegates unless it is actually impossible, because no one can ask you to sprout wings and fly. We have a valid, actually, we can't discuss right now, as far as I know, the terms, but the LNC members know.
Talk about the terms.
Okay.
I don't care.
All right, as long as there isn't, we actually are getting money. We are getting damages right now.
Well,
And
wait, time out. That's not correct. We aren't getting any damages.
okay, because that was discussed yesterday.
There is a provision for liquidated damages
Gotcha.
in the case of a cancellation.
Okay, thank you. Okay, stand corrected on that. But my point will still remain with that. It's if they should, I tend to believe they're not negotiating in good faith either. But the fact is, we have to behave in good faith to our delegates. And yes, we can sue the Rosen now, probably. I work in law in Florida. I can tell you that I have got cases that are 5 years old. And the attorney's fees, when we write the settlement checks, are more than the people who are suing get. We've got guaranteed damages here. We have always known the risk of another party reneging or the state of Florida closing. Those are risks that the delegates in convention knew, and they decided to take. It's not our choice. The deal that we were given, which we're all calling the moon, we asked for the moon and we were given it. If we ask for the moon, we're given it, and we don't take it, we're now the parties in bad faith. Not only in bad faith to Rosen, as far as I'm concerned. It doesn't matter if they have already been in bad faith too. I do not believe two wrongs make a right. We're in bad faith to our delegates. I don't believe in the equation of there's only a few people on their way now. I'm not a utilitarian. I believe we need to protect the people who, in good faith, have already made these arrangements, counting on us to carry forth the will of the delegates. I may have more to say later, but I just wanted to make that point. But the amendment I would like to offer to the Mattson motion would be that in the event of the Rosen Centre, in the event of this location no longer being available, or the state of Florida making the event no longer possible, an online convention will take place during the same dates and times.
Can I make a suggestion, Ms. Harlows?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
If you were to amend the motion to have the convention be both online and at the convention center, then if the convention center became unavailable, it wouldn't change anything.
I don't believe I have the authority to call an online convention without an impossibility. So
well, you do.
I don't believe I do. So
No.
My amendment remains as I stated it.
Is there a second for the amendment? Dies for lack of a second. Mr. Nikela.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So last night I mentioned that in the event that we asked for the moon and we received it, I would be open-minded to it, and I would certainly entertain it. Can any member of the COC or the COC chair answer if...
Can't hear you, Stephen.
I'm sorry, can you hear me better now?
A little.
Okay, I'll try to change that in a minute. But for now, that's all I have. Last night I mentioned that if given the moon, I would certainly be open-minded to it. If any member of the COC is available, I'd like to ask if they've seen what's proposed and how does that compare to what the COC and the LNC asked last night. And logistically, does the COC believe that this new arrangement, would it still work? And while I'm sure that we wouldn't have the same quality of convention as originally planned, would the quality and standards still be up to par to go through with this event?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to speak to that.
Ms. Ryan,
Yes, sir.
go ahead.
First of all, the room at the convention center, while you have to go across a bridge, it's still all indoors, and the room is much bigger. So we do have more space. So that's a plus. We're keeping all the food and beverage in the Rosen Centre, which would have been what we would have done at Shingle Creek. We got everything we asked for on the Shoot the Moon, lower attrition, better room nights for our people, everything we asked for. And I think that, I personally think that it would cost us a whole lot of money to not sign this contract. And we have very, very little risk with this contract. We only have to do 600 rooms and at nights. And as Alicia said, we're well over that. We're more than double that, almost triple that. So is there anything specific I can answer?
So as far as logistics, do we feel that this would be a good quality event to put on for our delegates?
Yes. I mean, this is where we held the 2016 event. And so, yes, it's a beautiful location. The room nights are very reasonable, much more reasonable than we've gotten in the past. And the facility has been updated according to Rosen. I haven't been over there, but Mr. Rosen said that the hotel had been updated. So yes, I believe that it would be equal to 2016 or better.
And with this new contract, do you see any risks or liabilities to the LNC at this time?
No, they removed the liquid damage clause and kept the clause that they owe us if they cancel for any other reason than force majeure, of course. And we're at bigger liability if we don't do this because we have to return money. We have a AV contractor that's on the way based on the back and forth, and he had to leave today to get there. So we'll owe him damages. I just see that there's a lot more damage if we don't do this. But it is up to the LNC. I would stress that this is a good deal.
Thank you, Ms. Ryan. Thank you, Mr. Nicola. Mr. Phillips?
Actually, I was going to ask for the, because Alicia Madsen said Ms. Adams and Ms. Betty Rose had more information, so I was going to ask for them to be able to present it, but we just got that answer, so thank you.
Okay, Ms. Adams?
Yeah, so look, we met last night. The general feel of the LNC was to ask for the moon. After that call, I went over the list with Ms. Ryan. We asked for everything. Every one of our delegates who attends is going to get a personal apology from the hotel in some form, as well as an amenity. I asked for every single thing. I felt like our delegates had been jerked around and I wanted them to make it right. And they've done that. Because they've done that, and after speaking with the chairs of my region, I'm going to support this, but I would like to amend the current motion on the table to add the wording, Mr. Chair, and to allow remote participation. However, it's best to add that wording. I would absolutely be open to guidance, but I think it's vital at this point. We have several states that are not going to be, they're going to be prevented from their state governments or, from participating. And I think that's disenfranchisement. And I think we need to address that in this motion.
Ms. Adams, I would suggest the wording that I had suggested to Ms. Harlos earlier, that you amend it to be both the convention center and the Rosen Centre, as well as online simultaneously.
That would be my motion.
Okay. Is there
Second. Second.
From Mr. Phillips. Ms. Adams, do you need to speak to the amendment, or is it pretty straightforward?
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Point of order from Ms. Mattson.
Yeah, I don't believe the LNC has the power to do this. It takes the delegates approving bylaw adjustment. So I don't believe it's in order to put this on the LNC's motion to select a location.
The motion is in order. The LNC was able to set an online convention without a bylaws adjustment to nominate our presidential candidate, and thus the LNC has the same power to set that location here. It is in order.
I appeal the ruling of the chair.
Ms. Harlos appeals the ruling of the chair. The LNC has set this is to be the location in the past. We had an online convention. There was no bylaws adjustment. We did it because there were issues with travel. We've successfully nominated our candidates. We've submitted those nomination papers. This is something that the delegates have already done. It was already challenged the last time when they did it. They did it overwhelmingly. And this resolves the issue of having this question of whether or not the people in Orlando who take whatever risks are appropriate to going to Orlando and the people who choose not to go to Orlando will be on the same footing. So that's why I believe it's in order. Ms. Harlos, would you like to speak against it being in order?
Yes, I would. And I want to qualify that I don't want to challenge this. I want full remote participation, but I can't go against our bylaws. And I believe the delegates will do the right thing. And if the ruling of the chair is sustained, I'm going to move to divide because there's some people who will not vote for this with that amendment. However, when we did this in May, and I'm one of the people who were totally for doing this in May, we didn't do it because of travel restrictions. We did it under the narrow escape clause that we have, which was impossibility. It was impossible to meet ballot access deadlines for our candidates if we did not do it immediately online. That's why all we did was our candidates. If we could have done everything, we would have just moved to do everything. There was an exception carved out for what was actually impossible. We do not have an impossibility right here, except I believe what would be in order is to allow online for states with travel restrictions, because I think we are talking about actual impossibility there. I would be amenable to that if somebody were to move that later. But this is outside of our authority. I do not want there to be any question about the legitimacy of our next chair. And if we do not do this by the book, there will be. And whoever it may be, the candidates running now or some dark horse that comes in, they don't deserve that. They deserve for things to be certain. So we don't have the authority to make it online. That is up to the delegates. And I'm very distressed that this body doesn't trust our delegates.
All right, would anyone like to speak in favor of the ruling of the chair?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to speak to my motion if I can.
Go ahead, Ms. Adams.
I do believe for many of our delegates, because of this change, right? Just the fact that the Rosen Shingle Creek contract was canceled and we've had to renegotiate a contract. We're literally talking about signing a contract today for a convention that starts in a matter of days. And I believe that does indeed create some level of impossibility for many of our delegates. And as such, that's why I'm moving this.
If I
Mr.
may,
Redpath?
Mr. Chair,
I'm sorry. Who said if I may?
if you're going down the list, I'll wait my turn.
Okay, Mr. Redpath?
Well, I'm sorry. Can I hear the amendment? The amendment is on the floor. What is the amendment again, please?
Ms. Harlos, if you could read it back.
It was, one moment, because I might have, you gave the wording before, and I'm doing it from memory from what you had said before, because Ms. Adams only said, yeah, that, and didn't repeat what it was that you said 10 minutes ago. It was a move to amend to, so Mattson's motion was to change the location of the 2020 National Convention to be the Rosen Centre Hotel in the Orange County Convention Center in Orlando Beach. And from what I understood, we would have it, the amendment would be to have it simultaneously online and at the Rosen Centre Hotel in Orange County Convention Center in Orlando Beach.
Yeah, I was going to have it in the other order, just after the Rosen Centre as well as online.
And simultaneously, correct?
Yeah, and simultaneously,
Okay,
yes.
so as well as simultaneously online, okay.
Online. Mr. Redpath, did that answer your question?
Yes, and I would like to speak in support of the ruling of the chair.
Go ahead.
First of all, if this convention occurs in person, and if there is not online participation with the delegates who cannot attend, that is going to cause a very serious rupture in the Libertarian Party. And while I think it will pass, I think, let's face it, it only takes 33.34% of the delegates to stop it. It is my understanding that there are some delegates who are planning to attend in Orlando if this convention is held, who are adamantly opposed to online participation. So this is no slam dunk. So I support the ruling of the chair that this is in order. It is essential that if this occurs in person, that online participation will occur.
Okay. Mr. Hewitt.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to disappoint you and not get into this fray over online or not online. My original point was going to be to address Mr. Valente's concern over good faith contract. Ms. Betty Rose actually already somewhat hit on it, that the fact that in 2016 we had an extremely successful convention with the same exact organization. So it's not like we're not dealing with a known quantity here. And I understand there's certain things that have happened and everything else, but I think that we can probably trust them on this. Like I say, the fact that we asked for the moon and they gave it to us is pretty good. And whether the delegates there on this issue, whether they decide to vote for online also, I think it's a slam dunk on the states that can't get there. I think we're talking about those states that probably don't have those restrictions, and I'm not going to get involved in that. So that's all I had to say, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Valente and then Mr. Wendt. Go ahead, Mr. Valente.
I will speak in favor of the chair's motion or chair's decision. Yeah, this is an issue where we have, and a possibility. We have people who have canceled. We've had people who are in a state of flux. And I think it's only right, if we are going to go forward with this, that there has to be an online portion with this. So I'm going to vote. Encourage a vote in favor of the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Wendt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to speak in favor of the ruling of the chair because one of the things that we're talking about is the delegates adjourned to the Rosen Shingle Creek. That has become impossible. That is now the decision of this LNC. I don't get a vote on this, but what it really comes down to is that there was also another vote during the May convention which said that online is a place. So if we're going to adhere to the will of the delegates for one of their votes, we have to adhere to the will of the delegates for all of their votes. So under that rationale, I support the ruling of the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Wendt. Mr. Bowen.
My comment is on the original motion. I'm not commenting on the amendment, so I'll pass.
Okay. Just then, all right, Mr. Nana.
I'll pass for now.
Okay, Mr. Phillips.
I would speak in favor of the amendment. I believe that impossibility, I actually had planned to make this motion myself, so I'm totally good with it. But it is my belief that impossibility has been reached for a huge majority of our delegates. And to not recognize that would be doing them a disservice. So I am 100% in favor of this amendment. And actually, the only way I will vote yes on the contract is if this amendment passes.
Okay, Ms. Matson.
I don't think it's in order right now for me to make this amendment, but I think
it is not. It is not. You have to stick with the argument.
On the appeal of the chair's ruling.
Yep.
And I'll let you know of amendment I will make if this vote fails, or if the ruling is overturned, because we've already had this discussion about whether or not, the LNC can do this sort of thing. And I think we can avoid violating our rules by instead of just bulldozing them. Instead, amend this to say recommend that the delegates adopt a bylaw amendment to allow remote participation. And then we don't have to bulldoze the rules, but we can still go on record.
Okay.
So next time, when the
all right.
come in,
I have Mr. Merced.
Okay. I speak in favor of sustaining the ruling of the chair.
You've got to take some home. You know why?
Can someone mute their microphone?
Ms. Harless, is your microphone?
From whatever you gave me when we were at your house.
Just a second. We'll find out.
Oh. Okay, there we go. Bottom line is this: I speak in support of sustaining the ruling of the chair. Just to kind of go back down memory lane, there was the meeting regarding where we did ask the question: is internet in place? And then I issued a ruling supporting that. It got overturned, but then we passed the ruling that allowed the online convention based on impossibility. But during all those discussions, impossibility wasn't the only word that kept coming up. There was also the word of impracticality. And I do think this beats the bar of impracticality if we're just looking at the convention as a whole. But if we consider because of the situation of the last few days, all the delegates who've canceled the flights, who've canceled hotels, and would have to rebook their flights, possibly at higher prices, we have created a situation for impossibility for delegates from and we don't know which states they're from, for us to be able to sit there and carve out for particular states. So I do think we've kind of hit that bar of impracticality, impossibility, in the eyes of many delegates who we need to represent and create an event that they can participate in. So I do think at this point we have hit the bar to be able to to move in this direction. And that's what I have to say.
To appeal to speak either in favor or against the ruling of the chair. The final comment I'll make with regard to the comments from Ms. Harlos and Ms. Matson about whether or not we would be somehow usurping the delegates and their ability to allow remote participation. I think with the precedent of the nominating convention over Memorial Day weekend, everyone in this committee would agree that if this committee decided that they didn't want to accept the contract at the Rosen Centre, and it wasn't possible to have the convention at a physical place at all, that we could set it to be online during that same time over the time that's already been allotted. I think everybody would agree that that is possible. And so I don't see how it makes any sense at all, the idea that somehow it would be possible to make it all online or possible to make it all in person, but not possible for us to make it both online and in person. The ability to do one is the ability to do the other. The ability to do both is the ability to do both. And that's why the ruling of the chair should be sustained. We'll move to a vote. I believe it is, shall the ruling of the chair be sustained? And I want to say a yes vote sustains my ruling and a no vote overturns it. Is that right?
Right.
Okay. do we need to make this be roll call, or can we just show hands?
Roll call, please, just because it's weird.
Okay. Ms. Harless, when you're ready. And again, a yes vote sustains the ruling of the chair. A no vote overturns it.
Can you mute everyone, Mr. Chair, and have them
No,
unmute as needed?
It was just Mr. Goldstein. I got it.
Sorry.
All right. Ms. Harless, when you're ready.
Ms. Billieu?
I'll be voting in this.
Oh, sorry,
vote.
Ms. Adams.
Yes.
Mr. Bishop Henchman?
Yes.
Mr. Coburn?
Yes.
Mr. Goldstein?
He may still be muted.
He has to
I
unmute.
unmuted myself. I figured it out. I vote yes.
Why? Because
Okay, now can you mute yourself, Sam?
Oh my.
Mr. Hagan?
Yes.
I don't know if I want anybody to meet.
Okay, sorry, that keeps distracting me. I'm actually just going to abstain on this one. Mr. Hewitt?
Oh, yes.
Ms. Hogarth?
Yes.
Mr. Longstreth?
Yes.
Ms. Mattson?
I vote no.
Mr. Merced?
Yes.
Mr. Nicola?
I vote yes.
One moment here. I have an outdated. Oh, okay. Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Redpath?
Yes.
Mr. Smith? Mr. Smith? Is Mr. Smith still
I'm
on the
checking
list?
right now. I just have video for Mr. Smith. It's not showing me the microphone for him.
I sent a request, ask him to start video in the hope that he will see
You
that.
could post in chat.
Yeah.
While we're waiting, Mr. Nana?
Yay.
Okay, just waiting for Mr. Smith.
I think we can call it a no vote at this point.
Wouldn't we call it an abstain?
Sorry, a non-vote. It is not a vote.
Okay, so the ruling of the chair is sustained, but in the accounts are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 in favor, 1 against, 1 express abstention, 1.
I'm just seeing if Mr. Smith, I can unmute him. It's not letting me unmute him. Go ahead, continue, sorry.
So 13 in favor of sustaining, 1 opposed, 1 express abstention, and 1 just non-vote.
Okay. I believe who had passed because they wanted to speak to the underlying. Was that Mr. Bowen?
It was, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Bowen.
Thank you. I have a point of inquiry. I'd like to know if someone can list for the board members what the dollar amount of sunk costs would be if we decide to cancel this evening. And in addition, if anyone has estimated what our profit and loss would be under the new contract terms.
Betty Rose.
I can't tell you exactly how much we would lose because we don't know how much money would be retained by the people. Do tend to say, give me all my money back except for $100 or something. So I don't know that, but I do know that we have an obligation to our AV guy now that we've already sent him to Florida. That contract is about $80,000. And we have bills that we have already accumulated, things like badges and whatnot. Robert would know more about that. But I think we've spent, Alicia, do you know how much we've spent so far? You have the...
So Robert has been very busy this past few days and hasn't gotten his... Am I muted? Okay, no.
We got an update this morning.
No, I was wondering on our budget, we've actually incurred costs
I'm
already.
sitting over there to look. So this data will be as of, I think it was June 22nd.
Answer. I sent you the data earlier today. I posted it in the comments.
Oh,
Currently, we have spent $78,016.
And we would also then have the AV and other charges that haven't shown up on the books yet. Then we would have to return all the money. So I don't know how much, Robert, do you have an idea how much money we would be returning if everybody asked for their money back?
1 minute unless Alicia has it.
On the package sales as of June 22nd, I have, and they were, to the right line. They were so 190,000 in package sales. We had other a la carte, and we had suite sales of 31,000. So we're over 200,000 of packages, and a la carte probably 212-ish.
And we could safely say
238.
at least 70% of that we would have to return based on what's been asked, what's been done before.
Okay, the second half of your question, Mr. Bowen?
The second half of my question was and I know it's probably too soon, but if anyone had estimated what the profit or loss would be under the new contract terms.
We haven't discussed under the new contract, but I think under the old contract, we had, with the new sales that we had and a few other things going on, we were right at break even, maybe a touch over or a touch under. When I say a touch, I'm talking about $1,000 or $2,000. I think that we managed to cut to the bone enough.
I don't think that's correct.
What do you think it is?
Not based on the numbers that we looked at earlier today in our COC meeting. The profit was there. We were showing 7,000 before other things were taken into consideration, like the money raised from the theme contest and some of the.
Oh, that's right. Because
I think it's much more significant than that.
Yeah, that doesn't. Well, theme money was in there, but there are a couple of other things that were not. The office has to book separate differently. It's not that we're not credited with it, but it has to book differently, so it doesn't show up on our books. Anyway, with this new contract, we're going to save on food alone. What is it, about $20,000, Aaron? And plus, they're giving us $4,000 worth of food, so it's going to be about $25,000.
Yeah.
So I think that we are going to be, rather than giving up over 200,000, that we should be in the black somewhere around 10 to 20,000, because there's always little things that you end up buying that you didn't realize you had to buy. And I think that would be safe.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Is it in order for me to make a comment on my first point of inquiry?
Briefly, go ahead.
I just wanted to say the package sales number, I don't consider a sunk cost. That's a cash flow issue because we've received that money. We're going to have to give it back. Is that correct?
Yes, although we've spent part of that money.
Okay, but then the true sunk cost, it sounds to me like, is the $78,000 that we have put out that we will not be able to recoup, plus an $80,000 contract to AV that
AV may not be 80.
Okay.
The AV is probably, after mitigations, probably more like 40 that we would end up stuck with.
Okay, so we'd be on the hook for about $120,000.
Yes.
Roughly.
Okay.
And there's some potential for damage recovery, but it would be pretty limited given the time frames.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I say something for a second? Because I can't figure out how to raise my hand on my phone.
Really quick, Sam.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Please remember that the LNC, or the Libertarian Party, spent at least $70,000 or $75,000 of convention money last year for general expenses that would be owed to the convention fund as well, that was spent on other expenses before the LNC put a stop to that practice.
Okay, Mr. Coburn.
Yeah, just a follow-up question. So what is the amount of money that we are yet to spend that's not sunk?
Talking about canceling the convention, and we're going to owe people hundreds of thousands
Mr.
of
Goldstein,
dollars.
you're out of order, Mr. Goldstein.
Yeah, they're arguing. Yeah,
Mr.
well,
Goldstein,
that's what we're coming
you're
up
out
with
of order,
a vote on.
Mr. Goldstein.
But they just passed a motion,
Mr. Goldstein,
even though the bylaws.
That Mr. Goldstein has gone to the quiet place. Mr. Coburn, if you could repeat your question.
Yeah, what is the amount of money that is not sunk cost that we can expect to recuperate if we do not hold the convention at the Rosen Centre?
I don't know if there's anything we recoup, honestly, because everything that we've collected in packages, if we don't hold a convention, is refundable. And then it's refundable at the discretion of the person you're refunding it to. For things like food and beverage or other expenditures at the hotel, the revenues and the expenses are sort of connected. So yes, we wouldn't spend the money on the hotel meals, but we also wouldn't have the package costs for the hotel meals. So I don't know. I mean, Ms. Ryan, do you have a better sense of that?
There's stuff built into those packages to help pay for AV and to help pay for this and that. We will still have to owe the AV company something, even if it's only $30,000 or $40,000. But we're giving that money back to the delegates, so that is definitely a cost. We bought lanyards. We've paid for things up front that now we're going to go in the hole. I mean, it's going to come out of the LNC's budget somehow if we return all those packages. No, I don't know exactly how much money each ticket goes for things that we won't have to pay for other than the meals. I mean, all the rest of the ticket is for things that we will probably have to pay for anyway or have already spent. And that will put us in the hole.
Mr. Wendt and then Mr. Valente. Mr. Wendt?
Yes, thank you. Just a quick reminder, we are on the amendment, correct?
Yes, we are on the amendment.
Thank you. So I want to start saying, the theme of this convention is there ain't no such thing as a free lunch. And what we have to realize, what the conversation has been going with, is there are costs. There are costs for our delegates to travel, and there are costs incurred by this party. There are costs that are already incurred. So the point is, we've always had this concept where we're splitting the baby, right? We're taking and we're trying to make all of our members whole. Now, some of them cannot go to Orlando. Some of them can go to Orlando and will go to Orlando, and I want them to be there. I personally can't go to Orlando. So what I'm saying is that let's make this party whole. Let's make our members whole. Let's do this thing as best we can, as janky as it's going to be, whatever. Let's get it done, and let's make this happen. So please pass this amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Wendt. Mr. Valente?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Point of information. Do we know how many people who have, specifically in the last week, canceled and requested a refund of their packages?
Ms. Ryan?
I don't have an exact number. I get about 2 a day, but Robert has also gotten more packages sold. So what the difference is, I don't know. It's kind of an ebb and flow. I would suggest that maybe we've lost 2 or 3 package holders a week in the last 3 weeks, maybe 2 weeks, I suppose. Yeah, last 2 weeks.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Harlos, what is your point of order?
I wonder if it'd be possible if we can restrict debate to the actual amendment at this point. Some of the questions seem to be more to the underlying motion.
Okay. I don't know as that was necessarily a point of order related to the comment that was being made, but
would it be possible to have the amendment on the screen?
Yes, one moment. I'll stick it in chat, or would chat be fine?
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Harlos, you are up, and then Mr. Smith.
I was in the middle of putting that on there.
Unless that point of order interrupted
No,
somebody.
it wasn't, but I'm just going to skip past me.
Okay, Mr. Smith.
Yeah, sorry, pass as well for now. I'm still having issues.
Okay. I'm going to just take a little point of privilege. I wanted to make sure that we had full negotiations with the Rosen Centre. Harris Rosen called me when we set the initial contract and assured me personally that he wanted to make this a success, and I assured him of the same. Part of the reason that I made sure that there was plenty of time for the parties to negotiate this contract was that gut level understanding that Harris Rosen wanted to make this thing work, and that if I could just keep people at the table and, you know, not let them quit, as may have been easier to do earlier in the week, that they would get to the right place. So I just want to push back on those people who have this feeling that Harris Rosen was not negotiating in good faith. I've never felt that way. You know, having pushed on some of these deal points pretty hard, he has always seemed to be pretty upright in his dealings with us. You know, this issue of why Shingle Creek closed and that lack of clarity is one thing, but I don't think he wants anything other than to make this a success. And, you know, it's not a bad offer, but I just wanted to dispel anything about any of this being in bad faith. I don't think anyone's been negotiating in bad faith here. Mr. Bishop Henchman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just speaking to that point, I've certainly not had the interaction with Mr. Rosen that you have. My only interaction was that time that we had him on the call. And, you know, he answered a lot of questions. I asked him a question, which was the Shingle Creek had this creeping delay where originally it was going to open earlier and it was changed to July 1. And I asked him, what is your procedure or process for making a decision to postpone reopening? And you know, he gave him an opportunity to answer. He didn't answer that question, and instead he said, I give you my word that the Shingle Creek will be open for you. And that means a lot to me. You know, I don't know why he closed or why he decided not to reopen. I don't know when he decided to not reopen. There's been some dispute about that. And, you know, whether this was a bait and switch from the beginning or whether, you know, circumstances just got past him, but it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. You know, I'm worried that we'll have more surprises in store for us. And as somebody said earlier, we'll be faced with a crisis situation and cancellation when we've got hundreds of people on the ground rather than just dozens. So I'm very worried about that scenario. And, you know, you can only trust somebody at their word. We picked the Shingle Creek because it had been closed. So we would be the first people back in and the only people back in. It's isolated. It's not near anything. And, you know, we don't have that now. Now we're going to be in a hotel that is very busy and full of lots of people and full of lots of stuff going on. The convention center apparently has other events going on in it. And, you know, I don't know whether he's going to come back next week with more surprises as he has the last week, seemingly every day. So I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. I have Mr. Phillips and then Ms. Harlos. Go ahead, Mr. Phillips.
We seem to be devolving into debate on the main motion rather than the amendment, so I would call the question.
Okay. There's a motion to end debate on the amendment. Ms. Harlos, did you have debate on the amendment? I just am inquiring.
I did, and it's very brief.
Mr. Phillips, do you mind if Ms. Harlos gets to make her very brief point
That's
on
fine.
the amendment? Okay, go ahead, Ms. Harlos.
It's just to Mr. Bishop Henchman, since I do agree with a lot of his points on the distrust. I do believe that even though I oppose our authority to do the amendment, I accept that the LNC sustain the ruling of the chair, that adding the online portion, so anyone who's there on the ground, it's a choice they made to go. They can participate online too. I believe we as a body need to try our best to give everyone what they want as much as possible. I believe Mr. Wentz said something like that, and I agree.
Okay. With that, we'll be done with debate on the amendment. So the current vote is on the amendment to add an online simultaneously to the original motion. Ms. Harlos, if you'll take this as a roll.
Okay, one moment. I think there's an open mic again.
It's probably Mr. Goldstein.
Okay,
And
thank
now
you.
it's wide.
Ms. Adams, we're voting on the amendment, correct?
Yes, a yes
Okay.
vote adds the online portion, the online simultaneously amendment. A no vote does not amend it to add that.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Adams?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, could we see the on the, thank you. There we go. Thank
Okay.
You. 1 second, because now that coming up on my screen just moved my roll. Hold on. I need to.
Didn't mean to do that.
That's okay.
Mr. Chair, are we on the Mattson amendment or the Adams amendment?
We're on the Adams amendment that adds as well as simultaneously online.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Bishop Henchman?
Yes.
Mr. Coburn?
Yes.
Mr. Goldstein?
Yes.
Mr. Hagan?
Yes.
I will abstain. Mr. Hewitt?
Yes.
Ms. Hogarth?
Yes.
Mr. Longstreth?
Yes.
Ms. Mattson?
Abstain.
Mr. Nikela?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Redpath?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Nana?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, the vote is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I didn't get
6,
called.
7. Oh, I'm sorry. Who did I miss? Mr. Merced?
And then I'm a yes.
Okay, thank you very much. It's 14 in favor, 0 opposed, 2 express abstentions.
Thank you, Ms. Harlos. We are now to the underlying amended motion. I believe we were prepared for a vote on that motion. I think we discussed most of the things. Although, Mr. Longstreth, are you seeking to be recognized on the underlying motion?
Yes. So my concern with the underlying motion is that essentially that would be this body approving a contract that I at least haven't seen, and I'm not sure if anybody else has as well. I'll
tell you who has seen it.
Well, as a personal point of personal privilege, could it be
Yeah.
sent out to the? Thank you.
Yeah, I think so.
I can
Robert?
send it right now to the
Dan.
quiet
Dan.
list.
Okay, so Dan will send it out. Mr. Hall and myself did review it and are prepared to execute it.
Thank you. That was going to be my follow-up. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Ms. Harlos.
would it be appropriate to recess for 5 minutes so that LNC members could review?
I think that's fine. We can be in recess until, I'll give you a whole 6 minutes. So until 5 after 10:05 Eastern time, we'll be in recess.
Where do we see this contract?
It will be arriving in your email shortly.
Should be. I just sent it on the outside chance. I know there are a couple new people who, if you don't see it in the next minute or so, from my LPHQ email address, let me know and I will send it to you personally.
And I think this version has underlines where changes were made since the last one you would have seen. So mostly in the concessions area of the contract, but not completely there.
Ms. Adams, if you could confirm that the one that I sent out is the one that, the final one.
All right, give me one moment. I'm looking.
It should say -2 at the end.
Let me see.
Well, and it has today's date on it.
Yeah, but there have been several versions today, so.
Jesus, you guys must be exhausted.
Betty Rose and Aaron Adams have spent pretty much all day on this.
I'm beat.
The rest of us had a meeting on it, but they spent a lot more hours than the rest of us did.
Betty, Rose, and Alicia, can you confirm it's the one that's version 2? That says
Where
live
does it say version
dash
2 on it?
Version 2. That's
What I'm looking at that just came into my inbox does say version 2, but I've not scanned the contract sufficiently to verify.
okay. The one that says live_version 2 is the latest one that I have, unless
does it
you
say
made
that?
some changes in your meeting at 5 o'clock.
It's in the
In the
title
file
of
name.
the attachment. In the
File name.
Yes, that is the one I sent out. Thank you.
Excellent. You have the correct contract.
Don't close the door. Don't close the door.
I asked them for every concession I thought I could think of.
I heard a don't close the door, which clearly contradicts with previous directives for Wayne to close the door.
That wasn't me, but funny enough, I just felt a draft and was about to turn around to say, Wayne, shut the door. I hate drafts.
Yeah, you'll notice as you go through this contract under the concessions clause, all of the underlying stuff is new, and there's a lot.
Karen Ann, our party is against the draft.
Oh, it's terrible. Terrible pun.
Drum roll, please.
Ba-bung.
Joe has dad jokes.
All right, on to supper.
Hey, Dan. Mr. Fishman, are you there?
I think Mr. Fishman may have stepped away.
I'm back. I'm sorry. I have returned.
Just a reminder to set up my alternate, Mr. Buffman, as for an email and to get him the NDA.
Yes. Did you send a copy to him, Mr. Phillips?
I didn't because I didn't have it handy to send to him.
Let me. Yours has not arrived yet.
Oh, the contract? Yes, I sent him a copy of the contract. I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about.
No, that's what I meant.
I did forward that on to him. Yes.
Dan, I haven't received the contract yet either.
I will send it to you, Mr. Valente.
Thank you, sir.
I'm going to send it to your Gmail so it'll arrive promptly.
Cool.
Is there anything in the new contract about getting electrical power to the tables in the convention hall?
There is not. That would fall under the convention center anyways, but it's cost prohibitive. But you can plug into any outlet that's there. And obviously, as we know from past conventions, people tend to bring their own power sources such as rechargers and extension cords and whatnot.
Always being a good neighbor is traveling with the power strip.
And there will be power along the wall, so there are outlets.
And if you know where to look for those hidden little plates on the floor, there's many outlets usually on the floor as well. That's what we never do when we go to a place like Freedom Fest. We never, ever, ever, ever look in those little plates.
We would never.
Never.
If those of you want to look at my screen, I travel with one of these, and when I fly, I am the most popular dude in the airport.
All right. Cthulhu is not on the ballot this year, in spite of your propaganda, sir.
He sleeps in the house of, sorry.
We are back. I believe we were prepared to move to a vote. Or no.
Mr. Chair, can we verify that all of the LNC members are in possession of this contract and have had an opportunity to view it?
If you haven't or don't, say something.
I have not, because my LP email comes by carrier pigeon.
Okay.
I will send a copy to Ms. Harless's Gmail.
Okay.
And could you send one to my Gmail as well? I think mine's running slow this time too, same carrier pigeon.
Who is that? I'm sorry.
Richard, I'm sorry.
Yep, I got you, Richard.
All right, Mr. Redpath, go ahead. Mr. Redpath.
We're now considering the main motion, please.
We are.
Okay, could we see it on a screen or somewhere?
I believe the secretary may be able to put that up on the screen.
One moment. I don't think I have sharing privileges.
Somebody has it.
If you look at my
Mr.
thing, I'll
Fishman.
spotlight myself. Or you could just click on me and spotlight my video and it'll show up on your screen.
Yep.
Wait, no fog machine? I'm out.
I also have a fog machine.
Mr. Chair,
Oh, for the
point of
convention.
information.
Yeah.
Yes, Ms. Adams.
Do I need to move to amend to include a fee for online participation, or is that something the Convention Oversight Committee has authorized to do?
Don't do it.
Don't.
I wouldn't.
Just please don't. That's, I mean,
Can of worms.
Floor fees have a storied history in this party, and I don't think you want to do that at 10 o'clock on a Friday night.
If you do not hear the music from Jaws right now, you should.
Perhaps you could, as we send out notifications for people, ask for voluntary donations to help cover the costs.
I think a lot of what's going to happen is we're going to end up retaining a significant portion of the package revenue for the people that don't attend in person. They're going to give back some of it, and it will more than offset the online participation. That's what I think is going to happen, without us having to put in this motion and then potentially triggering some people's oppositional defiance disorder.
For clarity, I asked simply because we have members in the chat wondering why we haven't asked.
Yeah, I think we've clarified that here.
Thank you.
Mr. Redpath.
You're recognizing me to make. I'd
I
like
am.
To move,
Yes.
I'd like to move an amendment, and this may not be exactly. It may need to be finessed a little bit here, but basically to strike everything except to meet online.
So you would be moving to amend to have it just be online?
Correct.
Okay, is there a second for that amendment?
Second.
Who's the second?
If I can, second is Valente.
You cannot.
I was thinking I can.
Yeah.
I will second.
Okay, Mr. Bishop Benjamin seconds. Go ahead, Mr. Redpath, speak to your amendment.
I will speak to my amendment. As everyone knows, well, first of all, I've been to 16 consecutive in-person conventions, every single presidential and midterm convention, starting with the Seattle Labor Day 1987 convention that nominated Ron Paul, every presidential and midterm convention. I do not do this lightly, but I think that there are too few people attending in Orlando.
Did we lose him?
I feel like we lost Mr. Redpath. Okay. Well, hopefully he'll come back. Mr. Smith.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. To the rest of my colleagues, thank you guys. It's been an honor to serve with you over the last 2 years. It's sad that for the last several months, we've had to spend the end of our tenure together arguing this issue to death. We are less than 3 days away, right? 4 days away. We have delegates that are already traveling to convention, are already in Orlando ready for the convention. We have delegates that have hotel rooms and Airbnbs and have booked all of their travel. With this amendment on the main motion, not this amendment, but the amendment that just passed prior to this, it gives everybody what they want. The people who can attend will have an opportunity to try and attend online. People can show up if they want to show up. We still have a national convention in person and hybrid online. We should not be trying to cancel this. We should not be trying to dick our delegates around. They sat there in our last portion of this convention and told us that they wanted an in-person convention. They wanted to adjourn to Orlando. We need to give them the opportunity. They're the ones who chose. We're not the authority on that. And I think this is a bad amendment. I think it's a bad idea to hold our convention completely online when our delegates have already spoken. I would urge the members of this board to please vote against this. Please give our membership the opportunity to do what they asked us to do what they said they wanted to do. I think it's very important. So thank you guys so much. That's all I had to say. Have a good night.
Thank you. Ms. Harlos, then Mr. Hewitt, then Mr.
Okay.
Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Back on May 2nd, the first time we started dealing with this, the LNC was very sharply at odds with many people, including myself, being on a side of all our way or nothing. And during the week between May 2nd and May 9th, everyone chilled and came to a spirit of compromise. And most of the people have held to that compromise. And what I find very ironic is when it looked like it was only going to be in person, everyone who wanted it online, not everyone, some people who wanted it online were very, very abusive to the people, and this isn't LNC members in particular, I'm just speaking in general, to the people who wanted it in person. Disenfranchisement, you're not letting us do it the way we would like to do, whatever. We all know the arguments that were very ugly. But it's funny that now that the shoe is on the other foot, a lot of the same people want to deny the right of the people to be there in person. This isn't right. We need to keep the compromise. There was a lot of work that went into it. Mr. Wendt was exactly correct. This is the only thing that will keep this party together right now. I see a tremendous split, and we need to try to give everyone what they want. Also, this next thing I'm going to say probably will be controversial, and some people will not agree. But I do not believe the LNC has the authority, while it is still possible, to have an in-person convention to completely override that, rather than that little partial override we just did. And I do honestly believe that if this were to pass, that the delegates that show up in Orlando can claim they're holding a convention. Do you really want this fight? I don't know the chair's intentions or what he feels about this, but I feel he could legitimately go to Orlando and chair in a convention. Let's not cause these problems. Please, I'm pleading with you in the spirit of amity. Let the people who are willing to go, go. Everyone I know that wants to go wants you guys who don't want to go to be there too. Thank you.
Right. Mr. Hewitt?
Mr. Redpath, please don't tell me what I need to do to protect myself from myself. This has been a lot of work from a group of a COC with controversial figures like Daniel Hayes and everybody else, and then Betty Rose and Jim Turney and our own chair have come in and worked very hard to get this compromise. This is what a real party does. You may have your own ideas of what you think needs to be done. Don't tell me what I need to do. I'm looking forward to seeing in person so many of the people that I've argued with over the last year and that I love. I really love. Sorry, Alex, I'm the other guy that's kind of a sentimental person too, but every one of these people here, we all agree that we need to change things. Let's don't make this about, me or you or better. Let's make it about, let's all get together. Let's make this work. I believe my own alternative, TJ Ferreira, has come up with a very good system that will make it work seamlessly. And I am all for going with the compromise that we've seen, and I'm looking forward to God, allowing, and everybody else, and the governor, and no force majeure to pull this out. And we've got the moon, and let's go to it right now. So that's all I've got to say.
Mr. Chairman, point of personal privilege.
Yes, Mr. Redpath.
Obviously, this does not have political support. I was going to read an email from Jennifer Moore regarding in the Pennsylvania party today regarding this situation, regarding people she knew who went to Florida, who followed the rules, who all came back to Pennsylvania COVID positive. But this obviously does not have support on the committee, I think, and I would choose to withdraw it. It's
Is there any objection to?
I would withdraw it.
Is there any objection to Mr. Redpath withdrawing his amendment? Hearing no objection, the amendment's withdrawn. We're back to a vote on the main motion. I believe we're ready to move to a vote. Is anyone still seeking to be recognized to speak before we move to a vote? Mr. Hewitt, is your hand just up from before?
I didn't, it's just never went down.
Mr. Smith, did you need to speak again?
No, my hand was up in case we went back to discussion only. So thanks.
Okay, then I think we're ready to move to a vote. This is on the underlying motion to change the location of the convention to be the Rosen Centre, the Orange County Convention Center, and simultaneously online. Ms. Harlos, if you can take the roll.
Okay, one moment. Excuse me. I think I'm starting to talk quiet now, like Miss Matson. It's starting to come to me. Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Bishop Henchman?
Pass.
Did you say pass?
Still thinking.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Coburn?
No.
Mr. Hagan?
Could you display this, sorry, on screen?
Mr. Fishman, do you still have that? I will put it in chat. I will put it in chat, one moment.
I've got it, thanks.
Okay, Mr. Hagan, you passed?
Correct.
I will vote yes. Mr. Hewitt?
Yes.
Ms. Hogarth?
Yes.
Mr. Longstreth?
Yes.
Ms. Matson?
I vote yes.
Mr. Merced?
Yes.
Mr. Nikela?
Resounding yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Did she say?
Oh, yes.
Mr. Redpath?
Abstain.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Nana?
Yes.
Mr. Bishop Henchman?
Yes.
I'm sorry. I couldn't-
Carlos,
Yes. And you
Ms.
skipped
Carlos, you forgot me.
Skip Goldstein.
Oh, one moment. Mr. Goldstein?
Hell yes.
Thank you. Mr. Hagan?
Yes.
Did I skip anybody else? Okay, one moment, Mr. Chair. It is 13 yes, 1 no, 1 express abstention.
With that, it passes. I will have Mr. Kraus execute the contract and send it back.
14, excuse me.
Is there anything further for this meeting?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Oh, never mind. It's resolved. Never mind. Thank you.
Okay. Hearing no further business.
Wait, I have a question. I do
Sorry,
have a question.
Ms. Hogarth, go ahead.
Maybe this was addressed, but if the state or the hotel shuts us down, the fact that we have a simultaneous event will allow us to be entirely online?
Correct.
Correct. Okay.
And that is my understanding as well.
I have a point of parliamentary inquiry.
That is
Mr. Wen.
Mr. White, go ahead.
Yes, my point of parliamentary inquiry is that currently the chair is restricted from any cancellations or negotiations with
Just
the
cancellations.
Just cancellations?
Yeah, so executing a new contract is not something that's been restricted.
Roger that. What I'm worried about is this next contract that we're talking about. Is that going to be, is that also further going to be restricted and hamper our ability to pivot on necessary? And I was wondering about the process of rescinding the previous vote in removing the chair's abilities.
You don't have to rescind the previous vote. The previous motion was related to the Shingle Creek contract and specifically said Shingle Creek contract. So it applies to that contract.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Mr. Bishop-Henchman?
Mr. Chair, we have an LNC meeting scheduled. Do we need to clarify that we are doing that online if people can't be there, or kind of what's the situation if some LNC members can't be there?
I mean, honestly, I would propose to do it the same way that we're doing the convention, where the LNC members who can't be there can be there with, you know, the same Zoom setup.
Does that happen automatically, or do we need to have a separate motion for that?
I was going to just do it automatically. If people want to have a motion to say that we can do it, I don't really care.
Well, would anyone challenge it if we did that? If we just did it without a motion?
Not I.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Ms. Harlow.
I can tell you we're doing that in platform committee, and the way I handled it is I just noticed it as an electronic meeting and said, some people will happen to be in the room with their computers in the same room, but I made it technically an electronic meeting.
Ditto with bylaws.
You can call it however you guys want to call it.
Yeah, we've had several JPA and different types of meetings that are half the people there and half the people are on Zoom. They work fine.
So that's we're just going to do it that way.
Yeah.
Mr. Phillips.
I just there's some questions in the chat regarding equal access, and I just want to let everybody know that I have watched the demonstration of the software that's been developed, and I think that most, if not all, of those objections will be handled, and equal access will be achievable.
Well, and that brings something up that I have been talking to the Credentials Committee about. They would prefer to not have contact-based credentialing in Orlando, if not necessary. They would rather not sit at a table and have people come within close proximity repeatedly for a day. So the preference would be to have everyone credential through the app, whether or not you're present in Orlando or not. That's the credentials, and then you add anybody who has to be in person for whatever reason.
Mr. Chair, can I speak to that?
I'm going to let Ms. Hogarth go first and then Ms. Adams.
That is what the Credentials Committee is planning on doing and prefers doing as well. We would prefer minimal contact.
Ms. Adams.
Yeah, that was partially the intent. When the Convention Oversight Committee sought out options and we heard more than one, and saw more than one. One of the big benefits of this platform is nobody has to line up at a mic to get into the queue. Nobody has to stand at a table to be credentialed. Nobody has to do that. It allows us to truly socially distance. And TJ, what he has done here is nothing short of a miracle, and I'm forever grateful to him.
Okay. Have Mr. Phillips and then Mr. Hagan.
I'm sorry, I just forgot to put my hand down.
Okay, Mr. Hagan.
If the Orange County Convention Center and Rosen Center becomes an impossibility and we have to do it all online, does the chair have the authority to change the start time to like noon Eastern time to, because 9 a.m. Eastern is like middle of night for Hawaiians.
I understand that. I don't think we can do that. I think it's just going to be related to that time. What could happen is if it would be more humane, we could convene at the time that we had to convene, and everyone could be nice to each other and recess for 3 hours and come back at noon. You know what I mean? Like, there's ways to do it, but we would gavel in at the time that was already set.
Okay. Just check what option.
All right, Ms. Harlos.
Yes, Mr. Chair, considering that the last, like you had clarified with Mr. Wendt about that prior motion, I just want to clarify that the chair doesn't intend to cancel this for any other reason other than Rosen pulling a dirty trick or Florida closing us down.
I have said it,
I
and
know.
I'm going to keep saying it as many times as I have to, even though people still choose not to believe it. When I signed or had Robert sign the contract, I already baked in a situation like this in my thinking before approving signing the contract. I was never intending to let this not go through. That's why I pushed to make sure that there was enough time to negotiate a contract that will keep us on the path towards success rather than pull the plug, as was where people's instincts were at the beginning of this week. I don't know how a bunch of people lost their nerve that had their nerve before, but it seems like everyone's got it back now, so it's probably okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'm not canceling the contract.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. All right. I don't see any other people seeking to be recognized. I think we are done, unless there's something else I don't know about. Do get your reports in, such as they are for the LNC meeting that's coming up. They don't have to be long because the meeting won't be long. And let's make this a success. And those of you I'll see in person, I'll see you in person in Orlando.
Mr. Chair, I apologize. Just for the LNC or any members who want to contact me, I will be at the Los Angeles convention this weekend where that app will be used. So as secretary, I'll have an opportunity to see how it goes. So if anyone, wants to speak to me, wants feedback or anything like that, wants to talk to me about how it went, I'm completely open to that. I just wanted to offer that. Thank you.
Okay. With that, we will be adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Thank you all. We got one more meeting, but I want to say it's been an interesting last 6 months with y'all.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good night, everybody. It's a good meeting.
Good night, everyone.